Hi everyone, welcome back to my series on the films of 1973. This episode is going to be on Day of the Jackal. Now, unlike many of the other movies that I've been reviewing, this is a movie not only have I seen before, but I've seen it before repeatedly, at least 3 times. I can't remember exactly whether it was a rental tape or something that I taped off of cable, but I'd seen this movie at least 3 times. I remember rewatching it, noticing new things about it. And as you may have guessed, I like it a great deal. Day of the Jackal was directed by Fred Zinnemann, who's done a couple of different classic films, such as A Man for All Seasons and the classic western High Noon, and he also directed the film version of the musical Oklahoma. It's based on a novel by Frederick Forsyth, but it is based on a lot of real-life events. The deal was Algeria used to be a French colony, and when France declared that Algeria was independent, granted its independence, there were some people that were not happy about that for some reason. They called themselves OAS, or the French Foreign Legion, basically. OAS stands for, in French, Secret Armed Organization. Very, very clever name. Anyway, so they were unhappy about this for some reason. I don't know why they have to be such whiny bitches about it. I mean, it's a free country now. Come on, seriously. But they were so unhappy that they tried repeatedly to assassinate the French president, who at the time was Charles de Gaulle. This was in the early 1960s. And in 1963, when the year the story takes place, the OAS hire an expert assassin whose code name is the Jackal to assassinate the president on what they call Liberation Day. Very appropriate. So the Jackal is played by Edward Fox. Edward Fox is Mick Jagger's co-star in Performance, I believe, in the film Performance. And then in the 90s, he went on to play the head of the household in Remains of the Day, the mansion where Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson, most of the characters, work. He is the owner of the mansion. So anyway, he's the Jackal, and he's hired by the OAS for $500,000, which apparently was a huge amount of money back then. There was a remake, actually, of this film that came out in '97. I believe. Bruce Willis played the Jackal, and his adversary is Richard Gere. In that movie, he was set out to assassinate, I think, the First Lady, or it was either the First Lady or the Vice President, who was a woman, played by Tess Harper. Tess Harper bears a really strange resemblance to Hillary Clinton. But his price in that movie was $70 million, so obviously that's... But this is France we're talking about here, not the United States. But at that time, since there were several attempts on the president's life, on Charles de Gaulle's life, he was considered to be the most well-protected man in all the world at that time. So as the story gets underway, you have the OAS hiring the Jackal, and he agrees to take the job, and he's going to spend at least a couple of months preparing this. Meanwhile, the French government gets wind of the plot. They find out that the OAS has hired a man, codenamed the Jackal, they don't know his real name, to assassinate the French president. So it's a race against time to figure out exactly who the guy is and where it's going to happen and stop him before it happens. And to that end, they recruit a senior detective, Inspector Lebel, who's played by Michael Lonsdale. At least that's how he's credited now. And originally in the film, he was Michel Lonsdale, Michel being the French version of the name Michael. This is an actor I've seen in a bunch of other movies, actually. He played Drax, the chief villain in the James Bond movie Moonraker, that one where basically nothing happens until they finally get to the space station at the end. He's also played supporting parts in The Remains of the Day, as it turns out, Chariots of Fire, and he appeared also in Ronin and Munich most recently. He was the one they called Papa, who was giving the team of Eric Bana and his team of assassins information where they can find the culprits that they were looking for. He's a very, very good actor. I believe he's a French actor. He's been in a lot of French films. His resume on IMDb is super long. But he's got this very calm, quiet voice to him. So he's a very sort of reassuring presence. So he's put in charge of this investigation. But there are a couple of conditions. One, it has to remain completely secret, and two, the French president, has refused to change his public schedule at all. So they have to accommodate all of his, his appointments basically, while still conducting their investigation. So it kind of is like a Tom Clancy thriller. That's sort of what I was reminded of, because they have to slowly sort of piece together what information they have about the people who might be he might associate with, and how he might be getting into the country, because the rumor is that he's English, and what aliases he might have, and all kinds of other stuff like that. But this is not typical Tom Clancy, because it takes place in the early 60s, so there's no computer networks to refer to, Imagine a Tom Clancy spy thriller without any computers. It's crazy. For example, when they find out one of his aliases, they want to find out where he's staying in France. So what they do is they have to check the hotels, because, if the guy is basically posing as a tourist or something like that, visiting the country, he doesn't have a house in France. He's got to be staying somewhere. The logical choice would be a hotel. So they have to find out from the hotels the names of the guests that are staying there. But that isn't something you can just pick up the phone and do, or consult a computer. What they have is registration cards from the hotel that are picked up by a cop, who then travels it to a central office, and then he hands them off to someone else. And then those guys all go to one central office where they have all the registration cards, and they're sorting through them one at a time, looking for the names they're looking for. It must be very, very time-consuming and frustrating for them. The Jackal is very, very, he prepares himself with a number of different fake identities. He makes up basically an identity based on a birth certificate from a person who died at a very young age. So he's got a legit birth certificate of someone who was actually born, but since they died early, they're not using it anymore, so he adopts that as one of his alternate identities. He also steals a passport from a man who he sort of resembles, and if he changes his appearance, he'll look exactly like him. So he's got a second identity, and he's building himself a rifle, or he has a rifle built that's basically a long series of iron rods that can be hidden in cylinders, basically. So he cuts basically a couple of tube underneath the car that he's using to store it in there. Meanwhile, while he's preparing, and getting ready for the big day, Lebel and the other guys he's working with are frantically trying to get whatever information that they can. So yeah, this is a really exciting movie. It's really long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, but you never know it. It just flies by, and it's really, really intense. So yeah, that is a strong recommendation for me on Day of the Jackal. Please avoid watching the remake. Please avoid watching the remake. First of all, you've got the head of the FBI running around all over Europe looking for the assassin, and he's the head of the FBI, which is supposed to be a domestic agency, not an international agency. That's ridiculous, Richard Gere is an Irish guy, and Bruce Willis. There's a number of different similarities to the original film, but yeah, it's not worth your time. The original is definitely the one you want to go with there. That's it for today, and I'm going to have more, of course, 1973 films upcoming. And if you've got a particular movie that you want me to check out and do a video on, please leave me a comment. You might want to look at the playlist. The link to that is in the description of all the videos I've done so far, because it might be a film that I've already done. But the next one will be the last of the movies that my friend Matthew in New York sent me, which is called Femrock. I have no idea what it is, no idea what it's about. I'm just going to watch it and find out. So tune in for that. Thanks very much for watching. See you again next time. Bye.